Mic check 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Ooh. I just want to welcome everybody back to another video. Today we're going to be reviewing this. Not only are we going to be trying this thing out, but we're also going to be able to talk about it, maybe even implement some recipes. Let's get into it. Oops. Okay, so this is a 4-pie maker. I can throw the 4 in there so that we know roughly how much we actually will be making at a time, because that's kind of important. Okay. Now, looking at it, it's not necessarily the biggest pies ever. You're looking at maybe like a tart size sort of pie. I wish they were a little bit bigger, a little bit deeper, but nonetheless they look pretty good. This is the unit. On the left side, pretty solid, you know. Top, the grooves at the bottom for your cable management. Side profile once again, and obviously a handle just to keep it together. Included also is a manual, and a base cutter. So one side is to cut the base, and the other side is to cut the top. In order to make a lid, I guess, basically. So I'm guessing that this could be a surefire way of making some tarts, as well as, you know, making some pies as well. And a manual for those who want to read, maybe access some recipes. It'll discuss a few things, parts, description, read all the instructions, safeguards, and all that kind of stuff before first use. Wipe carefully, blah 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 blah. That's cool. Before using your appliance for the first time, the baking plates must be coated with cooking oil to protect the non-stick cooking surface, which makes sense. I'm going to probably put cooking oil anyway, just based on the fact that we're going to be baking something. So for pastries, you can use any commercially available pastry or dough that can be purchased in supermarkets, such as short crust or puff pastry. For best results, it's recommended that you use puff pastry for the top and shortcut pastry for the base of the pie. Now, sometimes that's not always practical, so you gotta pick a pastry and hope for the best. Cutting, obviously, it describes the cutters. And then even talks a little bit about recipes, you know, mushrooms, diced bacon, tablespoon of plain flour, skimmed milk, Parmesan cheese, and things of that nature. Again, these are simple recipes. 200 grams of beef, lamb, chopped into 1 centimeter cubes, plain flour, beef stock powder, black pepper, onion, Worcestershire sauce, and quarter cup of water, you know. Thai sweet chili, chicken pies. I mean, we can go so much things with tomato and basil, quiches, apple pie, which is a classic, And pretty much everything is self-explanatory. Normally takes you about 5 minutes to make some of this. Okay, so instead of us just talking about it, why don't we see if we can put this to the test? Alrighty, for this product review, I chose the best moment because I'm a little bit worse for wear. Now, before getting into it and making some suggestions, I want to paint the scene for you. It's been a long weekend, or you've had a rough party night with the boys or the girls, and now it's the next day and you're trying to figure out how to get yourself into gear. You're hungry, you're thirsty, probably hungover, or just tired. I'm going to try to keep this very simple, very stupid. Preferably I would recommend you setting yourself up the night before. So because I've set the scene, I'm going to just put some glasses on because I feel horrible. And this is perfect because you're supposed to feel like shit. The first thing I'm going to recommend is just drinking some water. So much better. Again, that's the easiest thing to do. Yes, I'm still in my PJs. So, to make this product review much more compelling, I think that today I'm going to channel my inner Martha Stewart. I could choose to wear some aprons. Look, you know what? I'll try something. How about a grey? Since I do feel a little grey. Over my PJs, just to highlight exactly what's going on out here. Okay? Alright. This is indeed my kitchen. Please don't make jokes, it's tiny. That's the house that unfortunately was available. And I'm going to take you up closer to all the ingredients that I have set up. So, there we go. I'm bringing it down here. Not too much room to chop up and do everything that we want to do, but should be good enough for us to get the message across. Pardon my little plant there. I just took him out and transplanted him into that pot. So I'm hoping to give him some new life. He's struggling though. I'm talking about him, by the way. He's struggling, but we'll see what we can do for him later. For now, let's focus on getting our core ingredients together. Grabbing a knife would be a good start. This is going to be maybe breakfast, maybe brunch, cutting mat. This is just going to be us trying to figure out, you know, something to make and get the most out of it. What I have here is some beef casserole. A little bit out of date. Got it from the shop for cheap. Diced perfectly and obviously got the bones removed for equal measure. Some mushrooms from the local Woolworths or from any other store. We've got here some capsicums or bell peppers depending on where you're from. The name varies. And like I said, cutting mat, ingredients. I'm going to be adding a few herbs and spices into this. Some Caribbean spice in a grinder. Himalayan salt, chili, garlic, spice as well. Salt, pepper, in case you want to go old school, doesn't really matter. I was going to add some celery or something else into this, but forgot it completely at the shops, so we'll just have to work with what we have. Okay, now first thing I'll recommend is chopping up the capsicums. And I know people are scratching their heads wondering to themselves, what does this have to do with the tech channel? Well, one of the things about tech usually involves staying up late, so feeling like shit shouldn't be new to most of us. The other thing is technology has come a long way, and we are still unboxing and reviewing a device and actually doing some field testing. So as far as I'm concerned, this is part of the process. Just took the stem out. Just putting it out on the side for now. I'll put it in a bag later. So I don't have any trash bags in here or a trash can inside the house. I don't like bins inside the house just because of the smell. As I was saying, so what does this have to do with the tech channel? Well, technically, you know, when your mind isn't still fogged up, or you just are going through, how would I say, some level of fatigue, you're not thinking straight. So therefore, you cannot make critical decisions or actually be your best. And unfortunately, one of the things about innovations and things like that is you have to do it on a good stomach, you know, on a full stomach. The last thing that you want to do is go hungry. And I'm not saying that ideas were made by hungry people, so that way other people wouldn't have to face it. So what we're trying to do here is cover and create a well-rounded channel and show people different techniques of how to get by. And obviously another thing that we look at in this channel is keeping costs low. So cooking is one of those things that saves you money to buy all the cool gadgets that you like or that we review on this channel. Because eating out every day is not cheap. Now, the reason why I'm not cooking using any onion, by the way, is I've got a little puppy here, and dogs and onions don't get along very well. So I figured that if I was going to give my dog any leftovers or anything like that, I want him to have his best shot. So no chocolates, no raisins or grapes or anything like that, avocados, things with seeds. I'm not saying capsicums don't, but I'm just saying that as far as I know, some of these things are toxic to dogs and other animals, so I would recommend that keeping clear. Please don't compare my chop techniques to anyone else, as I'm not a chef. I'm just a guy pretending. Pretending. But yeah, so innovations, right? One of the things about tech is improvement, is about finding better ways to get things done much more efficiently, as well as just better overall. So cooking being one of them, and obviously us reviewing this particular gadget, it's just about trying to make sure that we actually know what we're going to do for our filling for the pastry instead. So what I'm trying to do here is create something that's palatable, something that, you know, multiple people can say wonderful things about, and see how we go from there. So here I am chopping in real time. I'm not going to do the whole video in real time, but this is just to give you an idea of the basic. I thought I would cover at least the first capsicum. So, just to stop the bore of people watching me chop up in real time. As you can see, so far I've created a red and a green army, and I'm working on the yellow army, just to sort of get things to where they need to be. Now I'm looking at the portion of the meat that I have. I think it's about 500 grams. Yes. I'm not sure how much the bell peppers, just 3 of them, weigh. But I can tell you that the mushrooms are about 500 grams. I'm not going to use all 500 because I feel like there's just going to be too many ingredients for the amount of meat. Not to say that that's a bad thing, but considering we're testing a pastry maker, what we're trying to establish here is just what we can and cannot do with them. Also, at the same time, this is basically a casserole that I'm making, or that's going to come out of this. So what we're trying to do is establish what's going to happen to the remainder of the casserole once we're done making our pastry. You can always add things like rice, or you can always have some pasta with it the next day. Hell, you could make instant noodles and just top up. It's just a good way of just getting a good amount of antioxidants and just other nutritional value. Like I said, to drink water. Oops, just put some stuff on the floor. That's not good. But that's my fault anyway for flying too close to the sun. I've used so much stuff here that it's taken up most of my chopping mat, so that's my fault. But nonetheless, just going through a bit more and we should be good to go. There we go. So what we have here, is pretty much everything we need. Just going to pick that up off the floor. Good thing all this shit is finally chopped. Put it down the sink. So like I said, we've got the red, green and yellow almonds established. And the next question is, okay, what are we going to do? Or what are we going to do with these core ingredients? Now, generally, as I'm going off camera here, what I try to do is look for a decent sized pot. Not so much a stock pot size, but something bigger than the saucepan. So this is normally what I cook my pasta in. Very big pot. It does most of the things that I want. You know, I don't know how many liters this is, but this will be great. Now, before putting anything at the bottom, I would recommend finding some oil. I wouldn't say put too much. I would say put a decent amount, but don't go ham, as this is supposed to be a healthy alternative. So what I'm just going to put is just put some canola oil at the bottom. Sure, some if you don't have spray stuff, you can put regular oil. Just going to put some stuff at the bottom just to coat it at the bottom, just to make sure things don't stick when things start to heat up. Traditional, I'd say heat up all this, but not to worry too much, because what we're going to try to do here is just put all the ingredients and let it simmer slowly, gather some heat. It's going to have, it's not so much about frying the items, it's about letting them gather some heat and actually cook. Because what we're trying to do is tenderize everything. We want everything to come out tender. So hopefully you can see that in all the angles or in all its glory. I'm going to pick this up and scoop everything, hopefully, and not spill. Oops. The reason why we don't want to fry is because we want this to stew a little bit in its own juices, soften the meat up. As I said before, we're not really trying to go for the whole, 500 grams here. We could, or maybe we should, I'm not sure. So far that's what half looks like, okay? And this is, again, not meant to be just for one person. This is meant to be for quite a few people. These are already diced, so even better. So what we're aiming for here, if I can find a stirring spoon. Oh. There we go. So what we're aiming for here is to just get a good healthy mix of the ingredients, you know. Good, oh, bit of plastic. Get a good healthy mix of the ingredients. Get some of that oil that I put earlier and hope that this meat has been diced down properly, you know. Get a good mix of the ingredients like that. And then put it on the stove top to do its thing. Break down some of that mushroom. Not sure if I should use the whole thing, but get the feeling that I don't know what else I'm going to be using it on. So, you know, I might as well. Let's use the whole thing. But 500 is a bit it's a tad much in normal circumstances. I'd say if you can get 250, maybe 300. It's probably the max that I'll recommend. But because this is all essentially going to break down at some point, 3 capsicums is heaps. You know, this is essentially going to all break down at some point. I just don't want to waste them and let them go bad. That's all. Like I said, some salt. This I'm just going to put a mixture of because it's more to do with the herbs and spices than so much the salt itself. So pardon the salt. Again, bigger pot. So we were trying to get a good smell. We're trying to make sure that at least there's flavor to any of this stuff. There we go. Not too much salt. I just put enough just to get us going. We'll probably add some more as we cook and as the food breaks down. Okay, so that's essentially what we have currently. Not the brightest of lights, but essentially that's all we're going to do. Put it on, I'd say, medium to not the maximum, but just maybe, I'd say maybe 75% heat, I think is the best way to go about it. 75, maybe 65% heat. So just above medium, just to get it going, just to get it cooking in its own juices. I would even recommend putting a lid on and just letting it simmer. Put things like the salt and pepper right next to it, as we're going to need that at a later stage. So I'll put all these right there, actually, where they can be seen, and let things take their course from there. And then when we come back, we'll come in, check and see how things are going, and then we'll add a few more ingredients before we move on to the next part of this. So, just checking, popping the lid up. As you can hear that's that simmering sound. And so far this is what the meal looks like. You know, it's coming together well, fluids are gathering up at the bottom. Like I said, all the main purpose here was to just make sure stuff doesn't burn. That's really what the oil was for. It wasn't really for frying purposes. That's why I put the lid on. What we're trying to do is just get the meat to tenderize and become soft, you know, make sure that it's just going to break apart. But the best way to do that is to let it cook in its own juices. I didn't try to add too much water or anything like that. I will add a few more wet ingredients soonish. I just first want to make sure that things get brown a little bit. The meat actually cooks. So that's what we're doing for now. So we're going to let it go for a few more rounds and then come back to it. Like I said, maintaining that heat. Very important to maintain that particular heat. You don't want it any lower than that. Lid fully closed, just so that way moisture doesn't escape, because what we're trying to do is get the meat to cook and tenderize a little bit. So I just thought we would do a quick check, because what we're doing is a check every about 5 minutes or so. You can see the steam coming out. Pardon the lighting. I chose not to put too much lighting up on this part, just because. So far this is what the ingredients look like. I hope you guys can get a glimpse of that. A lot of the ingredients have shrunk down, you know. I went from putting 500 grams of bell peppers, 500 grams of meat, 500 grams of mushrooms, and obviously some salt and all that other stuff. The whole purpose here is to just keep stirring, just to make sure that everything is pretty good and everything is mixing, nothing is sticking at the bottom. That's really what the aim of me bringing this stuff up is, just to make sure that things remain pretty good, you know. I want it to cook a little bit more, and then I'll start adding some more ingredients. I do want this to thicken up at some point, but also at the same time I don't want it to thicken up too early. So we'll check again in a few minutes time, see how we're progressing, and then if not, we'll add a few other extra bits and pieces later. So what we're trying to do is, so far it's still a fair bit of liquid in there, but the liquid has started to transform and it started to create its own blend of juice. Now what I'm trying to do is get the liquid to as low as possible before adding some more ingredients in there. Once I add those ingredients, what we might do is either keep it as a casserole, turn it into a light curry. We'll see as we go, and also how I feel on that particular matter. And like I said, as long as everything is going as well as it could, we'll come back to it and see how it goes in another 5 minutes or so. Alright, so I think now fluid is now at a low. Stuff is getting sticky at the bottom, right? Meal is now fairly cooked. So now, before things start to burn, the main aim here is to stir up just a little bit more. Okay, while it's on the side, what we're going to start doing now is adding a few other ingredients. So what I was thinking of doing at the moment is either condensed tomato soup or some diced tomatoes. Either way, I don't think you can go too wrong. Let me just have a quick look and see roughly what they say is involved in either of these. I think for the most part, pretty much this is all identical. It's going to be relevant anyway because I'm going to add some tomato. And then after adding some tomato, what I'm going to try to do is thicken it up. Normally I would have looked for some sort of flavoring in a packet or something like that, just to like a recipe based sort of thing. But instead what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to add regular tomato, maybe a little bit of water, which fits the purpose of what we're doing, I know. And I might be wrong, we might actually end up having to use both tomatoes, because that doesn't look quite vague. It just looks like, I don't know if y'all can see that. It just looks pretty average at the moment. We would like it to get a little bit extra, just so that way we've got a shot at this. Now I still want to add a bit more to this, and I'm trying to think to myself at this point, what can you add to that? You know, you've got your mushrooms, you've got everything else that you could possibly need. What else could you add to that? Well, I was tempted to add some lentils. I was tempted to add a few other bits and pieces just to make it just more. I was tempted to add chickpea even. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of light coconut cream just to see. This is just reduced fat, makes no difference really. I just took whatever is in my pantry because I've got a fair bit of stuff in there. And I just thought, hey, why not add something else? Because once again, it's going into a pastry, so it's going to really be pretty good. I hope this hasn't expired in any way. I don't know what to make of that. Just going to add a little bit, just in case. Again, I don't know too much about coconut cream. I don't know too much about coconut cream to comment, but that's what it looks like at the moment. And so the main aim there was to just thicken this up a bit, give it a bit more texture. I don't think it's off. I think it says 2021, like right at the end of 2021. So canned stuff, usually I can go with the, I usually go a little bit over. I don't mind too much, but that's what it's looking like at the moment. Now it's turned into something a little bit different. Like I said, hopefully all is well. I will probably add some lentils and a bit of curry to that. So just to give it a bit more life. Actually, not even lentils, I'll add some chickpea. I'll add some chickpeas into it just to highlight some things. Perfect for delicious dal or salads, and I'll probably add a bit of curry powder just to give this a bit more layers to it. Again, it's doubling up as two things. It's going to be filling for our pastry, but it's also going to be a meal by its own. A meal on its own by itself. So let's get rid of some of the liquid that comes in with the chickpea. That's going to be just, I'm doing that off camera. Normally I would have added, if it was just meant to be a straight up casserole, I would have added different vegetables in there, peas, carrots, all that kind of stuff, even the frozen stuff, sorry. But because of the nature of what we're doing, it doesn't matter so much. So currently this is what we have. So hopefully all is well. Like I said, I'm not sure when this is expiring. It looks okay. It says that this was produced in 2019, best before 15/12/2021. We're a few months over, but it should be okay. Besides, I didn't put the whole thing, I just put enough just to do what I wanted it to do. So we shall wait and see. But normally canned stuff, canned stuff tends to go a few more months over. It's different if it was something baked or something along those lines. I'm just trying to feel the texture of the meat. So this is what the pot would look like. I wish I had an overhead camera. That was perfect. So that's what the dish itself looks like at the moment. I'm just trying to get a feel of if the meat is tender right through. If I can poke it with this, usually that's a good sign. Let me see if I can poke something like that. That should be fairly alright. I'm going to let it cook a little bit more. I'm tempted to add, like I said, maybe some extra tomato in there. I'm not sure. Because once again, this is just the first part of the process. It's not even the main part. It's the main part just based on the fact that you need this in order for the rest of the for the thing to work, because we need something to put in the pastry. So what I was going to do was, like I said, modify this, give it a bit more flavor, give it a bit more ingredients to work with. Going to just add a little bit of curry powder, nothing too extreme, just to make sure that we're good to go. Again, this video wasn't meant to be too long, so what I'm going to do is at some point we'll just divide the video. Initial unboxing and review, and then this will add, this is basically a supplement to that video. It's not meant to be, hey, take it all in one series. Some people have the option of watching something right through to the results. Some people might not be willing to sit 20 minutes or so watching this. So I've just added a bit of curry powder just to give it that extra something to it. And I'll see if I need to add some more tomato on the way. Actually, I might just add the tomato now, just so that we've got something to work with. That's pretty good though. We'll add some more just in case. Can never have too much tomato, in my opinion anyway. This is the condensed soup version, so it's already somewhat thick. Add a bit more water to that. So at least now we've got a wide array of ingredients. So that's what it looks like. Now it's really thick. Jeez. Now I wish I could add more vegetables and whatnot. People can always top up if we need to, but now it's really thick. Okay, so that's what I wanted. Normally, like I said, I would add some veggies or whatnot in there, but I'll leave it like this for now. I'll let this cook for a bit longer, maybe another 5-10 minutes, and then we'll go from there. Now I wish I hadn't put that, but that's okay. Things happen for a reason. I wish I had maybe just left it the way it was. We'll go with it for now and see what we come up with. There we go. Put the lid on and I'll just monitor it just to make sure it doesn't burn at the bottom. That's the biggest issue. So, looking at the pot, my biggest mistake was adding a little bit too much tomato. Because what I normally don't like about these casseroles is they end up burning at the bottom. But with that being said, this is ready to go. A little bit too much tomato. If in retrospect I should have just left it with 1 can, but that's okay. This is essentially what I wanted it to be. Normally I would add a few more green vegetables, peas, corn, carrots, etc. But that's okay. Someone could always add these post that. Like I said, a little bit burnt at the bottom because I ended up adding the cream, and cream tends to, the condensed version of this tomato, that tends to burn a little bit more compared to just the diced for whatever reason. But in terms of the meat itself, I would say it has been cooked and it's breaking apart easily. Let me do that test quick while I'm on the camera. This is the best piece of meat I can find. To me, that's fairly cooked and fairly tender, so that's the only thing I was checking for here. Like I said, I just retrospectively, I wish I just maybe left 1 can out. But otherwise, we're good to go. So what I'll do is go back in time or forward myself in time to a better version of me and leave it at that for now. Okay, so what do we have here? What we have here is Pampers puff pastry. Okay, now what do I use it for personally? I'll show you in a minute. But one of the things that I wanted to emphasize is when you get this straight from your grocer or wherever it is that you're going to get it from, right? What you want to do is obviously peel it. It normally comes up with the strips. You normally want to peel it in a way where you don't damage it, like that. But you also can lay it down the way you want to lay it down. I made this sauce and I'll have a video. It'll go back and forth in time, I guess. But I made this sauce a day or 2 ago. It's a curry sauce. See, very vibrant. The only mistake that I can say that I made on this is when I added some extra tomato in it. I think it was condensed tomato. So because I added the condensed tomato, what it ended up doing was it ended up kind of burning the sauce a little bit at the bottom, whereas the diced tomatoes tend to cook properly the same way a regular tomato would. So to neutralize the flavor, I mean, other people loved it because I made it into a curry. To neutralize the flavor, what we're going to do is we're going to add a bit of chutney in there, just to give it a bit of a sweeter taste and something that's going to taste really good in the pies. Okay. Again, who knew that this would turn into a cooking channel? Who knows what this channel is going to become? We're still sort of trying to figure it out. But I'm sure even nerds have to eat. So with the sauce in mind, I'm just going to pour some. not going to go too much, maybe half a jar. It doesn't really matter because it's a fair amount of sauce in here. So any help that you can, or any help that we can get, we'll take it. So mixing it up, because normally some people would prefer this over the heat, but it doesn't really matter. It's for me anyway. This is for just illustration purposes. It doesn't have to be picture perfect. Again, I'm not Martha Stewart, so I'm not going for any daytime Emmy awards or anything like that. This is just for us to cook and get us the right way. All right. I'd say the flavor is all right now. Not that the flavor was terrible to begin with. See if I can just elevate the angle a little bit better. So our main aim here is, if we're going to be making pies, we have to remember which ones are the base and which ones are the lids, basically, or top. So let's start off with one base. So we can go down even here, where people can actually see. Press down as hard as you can. And then just press down just so that you can pop it out. My hands are clean. I washed them before starting up the camera again. Pressing down again. And just to make sure we've got measurements, we'll press down again and press down again. So that's pretty much what that looks like. And for the lids, again, pardon the angles, they're not going to be perfect. I need to get multiple cameras set up in an array. Maybe even have a camera shooting from up top. And then for the lid, or the top, we've got one over there. Normally I'll press down. Okay, that might need a bit extra. There we go. And then, because it's the top, normally want to keep them a little bit close together. There we go. There we go. Now, because we know what is expected of us, what we need to do is spray a little bit of oil just to make sure, since the unit is being run for the first time, you normally get a bit of smoke with these units. You normally get a bit of smoke. I'm going to put the sauce just up here for a second. And sometimes, look, you might have to use a spoon that will sort of sift the ingredients and leave the sauce out, because sometimes too much sauce might stuff up things. But what we're just trying to do here is make an example, just for review purposes. So let's not try to go too crazy. But it was just a recipe that I made the other day, and like I said, people will be able to see it. I'll either edit it into the video, or I'll edit it as an after sort of thing, or as a separate video as a part 2 to this. See, so what I'm putting here is just some canola, and I'll actually switch it on just to make sure. We're good to go. Okay, just to make sure there's some heat in there, and I'm just going to spray inside the unit. About as good as I can, or as light as I can, because what we want is to make sure that this remains non-stick relatively, as well as, you know, let it smoke up for the first time. open. So it's on. The lights, you can see it at the top there. It's on. Sorry for the awkward angles once again. You can't get it all perfect all the time. But what we're trying to do is cover everything and just make sure that we're all covered. So what we have here is, this is the top and that's the base. So because we're dealing with the base, take one here and peel gently. Hold my hands, y'all can see that. So that's the base. And normally what you would do is just sort of gently place it at the top like that. Okay, take the second one. There we go. So that gives us an idea of what we're doing, right? And obviously when you cut them up, that's what they're going to look like. So that gives us an idea. So while the heat is going and sort of molding, we quickly have to work this into the system. Now normally I would prefer a spoon that drains a little bit. Something that's perforated that will let some soup seep through. Right now, perfect. So something like this I would prefer. So why? Because it will let some of that sauce come out so that it's not too saucy, and then just let the ingredients drop right in. So shake that. I just hope that there's enough meat in there. I did do a decent job last time. I checked. That one might come out not so great, just because it feels like that one too might not come out so great because I stuffed up a little bit, but that's okay. Actually, I think I may have made a mistake. Base cutter, no, that's the base, that's the top. I think I'm doing all right. Okay, so we've done the first batch. So we're going to take these, put that aside for a second, and put the lids on. I get the feeling that I'm doing it backwards. I hope I am not. I get the feeling that maybe I should have made this the lid. Yeah, I think I've made a mistake here, but it's alright. I'll rectify it on the second batch. I think I should have made the bottom, the top, and the top, the bottom. So that's okay. I'll rectify them in a bit. For now, let's just hope that we'll get something out of these. And then I'll come back and I'll show how it's done on the second batch. Perfectly. Because it's not meant to be a perfect solution, it's just us just sort of going through the process quickly. Yep, I think I made a mistake, and that's why maybe the base wasn't able to hold a lot of stuff. So other than that, you close the lid and you let it go for as long as you can. Now normally what I would do is maybe muck around with these for different shapes. So for example, you could make a triangle just based on the cutter here and there. and then maybe up there. You could make a diamond shape as well, between here and there, to there. And these are things that you can just put on top of the pie, triangles, corners, all that kind of stuff. You can always repurpose a lot of this stuff rather than actually putting them to waste. Hell, if I could, if the sizing was great, I would make a lid out of that. But not so great, so we'll work in whatever we can work in and deal with it whenever we can. So I'm going to cut another batch off camera and then come back and show you the results of the pies when they're done. Okay, so we're back. Just having a quick check. This is what they're looking like. So to me, as far as I'm concerned, I think these pies are done. Like I said, I wish that the base was a little bit sturdier, but usually pretty good. Now, normally, sometimes just for fun, whenever, because I don't hate wasting, I normally will put maybe something like this on top, corners, to just sort of give them a bit of a design. I'll tack on some things and maybe throw in another few seconds just to give them something different, you know. Just so that we don't waste a lot of the pastry, because it sucks. Because again, you always want to think of ways to recycle and repurpose a lot of stuff. So I'll throw them in, pop them in for another 20 seconds or so, and usually that helps a lot. But I've already pre-cut some of these, and these are going to be the bases and these are going to be the tops, and I want to see how they come out like. And then I'll present them properly in the shot, just to sort of cover what we're trying to cover. But for the most part, generally, a lot of it looks good. And for us, that's what we're trying to achieve here, just to sort of highlight, do these work? Are they worth it? And maybe even do a taste test. We shall see. So I'm just waiting just to quickly check, just to see if that, not quite yet, almost. I'll wait for them to just cook up just a touch more. And once that pastry that's got nothing else going on top, I'll plate it and then put it to the side, and then we'll try one more batch and then see how we go. Once again, this time around with what I perceive to be the base this time, and then the top, you know, on the other end, and see how we go. I'm just giving it a few more seconds, just so that way we have perfect triangular shapes, and see how we go. I think we should be good. I think that's about as good as it's going to get. I'm not going to wait too long because I don't want to burn the ingredients, but that's roughly what they look like. So getting them out, breaking a piece. Ooh, very hot. Very, very hot. Look, I might have been wrong. I think I might have been wrong. I think that that's what it's supposed to look like. We'll see when we get, and I can smell that curry smell. But there you go. Those are what they look like. So for angle's sake, I'll flip one over, give you guys an idea. But they're nice and sealed up, and that's what we want. Nice and sealed up, nice and crispy. It's prepared to make another batch, and let's see how we go. Okay, so this time around we're going to take what I perceive to be the top. Again, it could be my mistake. I'll find out in a second. Screw this. I forgot to spray quickly just to make sure. Just to make sure things don't. There we go. And we'll put one here. Oops. I get the feeling that I might actually be wrong. I get the feeling that initially I did it right the first time around, and now I'm actually stuffing up. But again, these are not very deep pies, and so because I'm just reviewing this particular unit, there's a six pie version, and I'm sure that there's some bigger brand names that you can always go. Anko is pretty much K-Mart's budget brand. It's their own home brand that they make, their own generic brand. So you also have to leave a bit of room for error when it comes to these. But because they're priced so well, you also then have to look at it for the bargain that it is. You know, you also then have to look at it, geez, from my pocket, if I'm just trying to feed my family, or I'm just a single guy just trying to find something to eat quick, on the quick, or for most of us, you know, who don't necessarily have the time to cook all the time, and we just want to make sure we can get something in our tummy, this would be it. A day after a hangover, perfect for this sort of thing as well. It's almost even better to sort of have them pre-made before you go out. And again, I don't drink, but I'm just sort of highlighting just things that you could wake up to on a Sunday. There are worse things that you could wake up to on a Sunday, is all I'm saying, you know. So this would be a great breakfast. I get the feeling that I should have done these as the bottoms, but we shall find out we shall learn from the mistakes after the second batch comes out. So we're going to put these and sort of see what does the reverse look like. We'll be back in a few minutes and see how we go. Okay, we're back. These ones actually came out alright, and I even added you know, a few cuts on top, so they've got all these weird shapes compared to these guys. These guys, the shapes came out pretty good. As you can see, the shapes came out really solid. The ones at the top you wouldn't even tell because they're browned so much better. But again, oh, very hot, very hot. And this one, a bit of sauce was spilling out. I'm surprised it worked out the way that it did, actually. I'm kind of happy with that. So I think that maybe from now I'm going to use the base instead of the top and sort of see how that goes. Because all as sealed as those are, which are still pretty nice, these ones came out looking very good. Alright, so we're going to continue with one more batch, and then from there we'll sit down and do a review and discuss roughly my thoughts on the matter. Oops, I don't know what's going on with my canola. It's spraying all over the place. Must be just that. Put some there. Okay, so we established that maybe, just maybe I should go this route. Give them room. I was telling a friend that, hey, if people were really committed, you know, you could wake up, you could set these things up every day, have a little truck, sort of van sort of set up, and actually just go to a construction site and feed the boys down there. Make it a business. Serving pastries. bit of a design. Like I said, I just hate the fact that I wish I knew how to roll this stuff up perfectly, and I could make something else with this extra puff pastry. I feel like there are things that I could do with this, but unfortunately I don't know any better. Maybe I'll learn something or two later. I'll maybe do it later, and I'll do a follow-up video showing some new designs and patterns and things that I've come up with of how to reuse. Because the way this cuts, you'd think, you know, with the way this cuts, you'd think what to do with all that. If I could interweave it somehow and lay it up and make it into one solid base. I don't know if you can. Might be able to get a roller. Maybe. Let's see if I can pull out a rolling pin and let's see if I can pull out a rolling pin and see if I can flatten some stuff out. We'll see in a minute. Cut off all the paper. Let's see. I'll do an experiment off camera after these pies are done, and we'll discuss roughly what I think, and see if maybe there's a way to actually make use of some of this. Who knows, you might be able to make something out of them, and maybe get a few more things going on, because I get the feeling that you should be able to roll this up into a dough of some kind and get something out of it, surely. You can't just waste shavings like that. I'll see if I've got a rolling pin somewhere. Knowing me, I should. And I get the feeling one of my pies just opened because I can hear that sizzling sound. I just hope it doesn't smoke too much and set off my smoke alarms in the house. So what I'll do is I'll set it up there, put one there. Just let it sit there for a bit and till I figure out where I can find a rolling pin. Let me just quickly check on these. Yep, I knew that one of them spilled open. Ooh, very hot. Let me see. Hopefully it doesn't burn too much. But yeah, I'll leave that for now, and I'll come back soon, and then we'll wrap this video up. Okay, so at least 16 pies later, what do I think of this? I think it's a go. I think that for the amount of time that I used to make these pies, it was taking me 5 minutes on average to make 4 pies. I think that this is a go. These results speak for themselves. Hell, maybe this should even be a thumbnail. Some of these are still very hot. I'll take maybe this pie from the bottom, give it a try. Not bad. Cooked right through. I would say that's pretty good. And that chutney really stands out. That's really good. So I'll leave that with you guys. Thank you very much. See you soon. And I guess we'll talk on the next one.